So here's the issue with the industry. So once an agent gets into real estate and they find out, okay, I'm in sales, I got to figure this sales thing out. The problem is that there are lies being told to agents that they buy into that causes them to like stay broke, quite frankly. And I want to unpack every single one of them. And there are a lot, but there's 7 main ones. The first one is, that you, the salesperson, must be the one to do all of the convincing. You, AKA, have to do all the selling, the persuading, the influencing. And that's the problem, because most people, when they think about, okay, I don't like salespeople, or I don't like being called a salesperson. Why? Why don't you like salespeople? And why don't you like the idea of being a salesperson? It's because what people think sales is the persuading or the convincing to have somebody do something that they don't want to do. And that's simply not sales. Sales is not something you do to someone. Sales is something you do for and with someone. And so the first lie that we've got to unpack is that you have to do any of the convincing. You don't have to do the convincing of anything. Quite frankly, it's not even very effective, because if you're convincing a prospect to do something, in other words, if you're telling somebody something, they don't believe you, but they never argue with their own information. So rather than you trying to sell someone or convince someone to do something, the job of a salesperson is to ask great questions, in this context, Socratic style questions, to get prospects to come up with their own reasons for doing or not doing something. That makes sense?
Absolutely. We often use the word be a consultant, right? And being a consultant, I feel like naturally puts you in a position of this high level figure where the other person is interviewing with you, whether or not you're going to work with them or not. And that's the approach we're talking about here.
That's right. People don't do things for your reasons anyways. They do things for their own reasons. And so a great salesperson does a great job of asking questions that elicit something called self-persuasion. So let me give the audience a really good example, all right? Realtors, really quick, if you're not yet earning $100,000 a year consistently, I'm talking about having $10,000 months, month after month after month, I just launched the Listing Agent Blueprint. It's a free course where I show you exactly how to generate a 6-figure income step by step. And the best part, it's all listing focused. So no more chasing buyers around, no more working nights and weekends. I'm going to show you how to do this every step of the way. And it doesn't matter if you have any experience, and you certainly don't need any money to buy any leads with this model. To get started, all you have to do is simply click the link in the description. All right, let's get back to the video. So let's look at this iPhone. This is a really, really good example. If you ask an amateur salesperson to sell this iPhone to somebody, it's because, Ben, they don't know any better. They automatically go into convince mode. They start saying, okay, this is a beautiful iPhone. This is the iPhone, I don't know, whatever number this is. We'll call it the iPhone 14. It has 3 cameras, so it allows you to zoom in, zoom out. You can record in 4K. It has so many mega whatever for storage. It's got this thing, it's got that thing. This is going to be way better than the thing that you have. Like, when I'm doing this, honestly, how does it make you feel as a prospect?
It's like, I don't even care.
That's
it's
right.
Like too technical.
Yeah. It's like features, and it's like the feature dump, right?
Like, what's it going to do for me? I don't get it.
Yeah. So that's what people think selling is. It's like, let me give you what I think are reasons why you would want to buy this phone, and it backfires because people don't do things for your reasons. They do it for their own reasons. So what are we talking about? Instead of saying, all right, let me get into convince mode, the first question is, well, can I ask you, what's wrong with the phone that you already have? See, we have to identify a problem. All sales is identifying, well, let me take a step back. It's getting the prospect to identify a problem. Because unless they recognize that they have a problem, they're not going to pull out their money and pay to solve it.
That's right.
Right? So the first thing is to get somebody into self-persuasion, it's to ask them, well, what is wrong with the status quo? It's actually to make the argument for staying the same that allows the prospect to make an argument for why change is necessary. And guess what? If there is no argument, there's never going to be a sale in the first place. So going back to the question, well, Ben, let me just ask you, out of curiosity, what has you shopping for a phone in the first place? I mean, what's wrong with the phone you have right now? And it gets the prospect to start to say, okay, well, here's the issue, or here's what I'm running into, or here's what I'm looking for. That's self-persuasion. So when we say you never have to do any of the selling, the prospect should be doing all the selling, that is what we're referring to. You with me?
Absolutely. These form of questioning, a lot of people in sales call it discovery. An amateur salesperson use discovery for like fuel for themselves as ammunition. That's what I'm not fuel, ammunition for themselves to like, okay, I got you. You need a new camera. That's my ammunition I'm going to use against you. Great salespeople, they use those things to help the prospect, like you said, discover for themselves. Discovery is for them to discover for themselves why they need something, not for you as the salesperson.
Great point. Wow. I mean, hope people are taking notes. I mean, we're giving some really good stuff. Like that is such a golden nugget that you just gave. Discovery is for the prospect to discover, not for the salesperson to discover some ammunition to use against the prospect. Like people get it wrong, right?
And here's the other thing, just to double down on that. When you get somebody to talk through this, sometimes they don't even know themselves the issues or the pain, and having them verbalize this and go through the process themselves is really what brings it to the surface for them to be aware of it in the first place.
Yeah, because again, remember, people aren't going to part ways with a lot of money or sell their house or whatever because of the reasons you give them. They have to be the ones who feels the pain, and that pain has to be so real for them that they're willing to do something about it. And they're not going to be willing to do something. This is where most amateur salespeople just screw it up. They think that it's what they say that's going to get the person to do something. It's what you're going to ask that allows the prospect to say the thing that will get them into action. And so that's self-persuasion, right? If the prospect doesn't argue with their own information, they always argue with the salesperson's information. They are never going to argue with their own reason. They will always argue with your reason, right? So that's where objection comes in. But let's go to the next lie. The next lie is that listening is the most important skill in selling. Now, I will say yes and no with this caveat. Most people that are newer to sales listen with the intent to talk, which is the problem, versus listening with the intent to understand. Now, let me explain. This is when we introduce two concepts. One, the most addictive drug to salespeople known to man, called hopium. And it's what every salesperson is addicted to. And we'll talk about it. And then the other concept, which is called happy ears, which is the driver of hopium. So here's a great example. A prospect or a realtor will be talking to a prospect about selling their home. And the prospect says, you know what? Why don't you give me a call back in the summer? And the prospect, or the realtor rather, thinks to themselves, because they get so excited that they take give me a call back as a form of interest, where the seasoned salesperson takes call me back in a few months as a red flag, as a point of, well, because oftentimes what prospects say is not what they mean. So prospect who says, hey, call me back in a few months, think about how many times a prospect has told you, hey, give me a call back in a couple weeks, couple of months, and you have never been able to get them on the phone again. Because what they said was not what they meant. What they meant was, as soon as I get rid of you, I'm going to block your number and never talk to you again. And so the amateur doesn't hear that. They hear, wow, I've got a hot one on the hook here. You know, they start to ring the bell, so to speak.
Right.
And they think they have something when they don't.
And they don't want to talk themselves out of it. They're like, ooh, I better shut up and take this and call him back. They're not dare going to ask questions that might convince them that this is a bad idea and we shouldn't talk.
That's right. It's because their unwillingness to hear the truth. It's the salesperson's unwillingness to hear no. And prospects know it. So prospects know that if they tell a salesperson, no, I don't want to do business with you, they know that that's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, number one, and that prospect or that salesperson is going to try to do something to convince them as to why they should. So you want to know the fastest way to get rid of a salesperson? Tell them you're interested when you're not. It's the fastest way to get out of that situation. You do it, I do it. We all do it. It's because we just don't want to deal with it, you know? So it's like, give me a call back, or better yet, the infamous, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. You see, 90% of the time, I need to think it over means, listen, as soon as I get you out of my house, I am never talking to you again. But I don't want to deal with the uncomfortable conversation of telling you really like, dude, you're a schmuck. I'll never do business with you. I don't like you at all. Instead of doing that, I'm going to let this person down lightly because I don't want to hurt their feelings, right? And so I'll just tell them, listen, I just got to think it over. It's a big decision. I really like this though, Ben. I got to tell you, I really like what we talked about. The amateurs, like, again, they get happy ears. They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I think I got one. They run back to their office and they tell the whole office, guys, I think I got one. I think I got my first listing. In reality, they have nothing. They have nothing because they don't want to hear the truth, right? And the thing is that a no decision is still a decision, right? And so listening with the intent of understanding so that you can understand the truth is what we're talking about with this lie. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add?
Well, I was thinking of an example.
Yeah.
So we were just on a coaching call, and one of the skills that you help agents with the most is taking these scripts and turning it into a real conversation, which includes active listening.
Yeah.
So we were on a call listening to it.
Right.
And you were like, out of curiosity, it doesn't sound like you fully asked all the questions to qualify this as a lead. I would have loved to hear you ask if they had an agent that they would have worked with or not.
Yeah.
If the time came. And you said, you know what? We never do this. But can you call this person right now?
On the
and
live
ask
coaching
them?
call.
It was live. So he rings the person up and asks them the question. Hey, I know you said call you back at this point. I didn't ask you this question. He asked the question and they said, you know what? I like you, but I am actually an agent. And when the time comes, which was actually yesterday, I'm going to list it myself, which I did. And, but I appreciate the call. I appreciate the help. And there you go. So happy ears caused this agent to run and fill their pipeline with somebody that is an agent themselves, and he has absolutely zero chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's mutual mystification, right? And the whole time on the first conversation, this was the whole coaching call. We were breaking down the call, the actual first call with this prospect who ended up being a suspect, who ended up being nothing at all, and
a culprit.
Yeah. And the thing is that agents don't want to ask these questions because they don't want the answer. They're right, because they live on hopium. They're afraid, Ben, that if they ask, hey, out of curiosity, and this is the way we would ask it, this is the push away technique. It's when the day comes for you to actually put the house on the market, I'm assuming, like most people, you've already got a really good agent who you trust who's going to list this for you. Would that be fair? And he didn't ask that question because, like most, they don't want to find out now. Well, yeah, we actually do. Or in this case, well, I'm a realtor. I'm going to list it. And so it was a bunch of beating around the bush. But then on the other hand, agents, when I ask them this question, well, if a prospect was never, ever going to do business with you, ever, when would you want to know? And they always say right now. Well, yes and no. I mean, logically, you can answer the question. Emotionally, you don't really want to find out. And that's what keeps them on the hamster wheel. They're just spinning their wheels, right? They talk to a prospect who's polite on the phone and they mistake that for false interest, right? The call me back, but you didn't ask any real questions to disqualify the prospect. All right, let's talk about lie number 3. Oh, this is good. Lie number 3, sales is all about getting to yes. So here's the problem with this lie. Because every Tom, Dick, and Harry sales trainer is teaching agents how to close for the signature and close for the appointment and get to yes, what ends up happening is they get a lot of no's. The more you try to convince somebody to do something that you want them to do, the more so they push back. We call it psychological reactance, right? This is a thing that's been around for years and years and years. There's been studies on it for decades upon decades upon decades. And this is one of the biggest challenges for the sales profession, is that when you try to approach somebody and pressure them into saying yes, compliance plummets. Conversion goes way, 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 way down. It's the same thing that, and there's great studies about this, where if there's a sign that says, don't touch wet paint, it actually triggers the motivation to touch the wall more. The same way when you tell a child, hey, don't touch the hot stove, it actually does the opposite of that. It makes the kid want to touch the hot stove more. Why? Because the freedom to make your own decision is being at risk or being taken away rather, and it makes you want to do the thing even more. So this is what's going on in sales. So rather than trying to pressure people into getting them to yes, we actually want to do the opposite. What we also know is true is that when you go for no, compliance goes up. You actually get more yeses. So let me give before we dive into examples, you want to add anything to that so far?
No, keep going.
Yeah. So as an example of that, this is a good one. Let's just say you are calling through one of your farm areas and you're looking for people who potentially will sell their home this year. Okay. One of the scripts of many is you call a prospect and you say, Ben, out of curiosity, have you had any plans on thinking about selling this year? Okay. You might think of that question as, that's not a big deal. But how does the prospect take it? The prospect takes it with what we call some perceived bias, that you're a realtor calling me out of the blue and asking me if I want to sell my home. Now, why? If I answer the wrong way, what do I think is going to happen? Well, this person is going to try to sell me something. So out of reflex, I tell the salesperson no. Now, that could be real. That could be not real. We don't know. It's a reflex. Now, watch what happens on the inverse. We're still going to use reflex response to an advantage, but here's the thing. When you present the prospect with no, the same reflex happens. So when I call that same prospect, I say, Ben, I get the feeling that if I were to ask you if you were thinking about selling this year, you'd probably laugh me off the phone and tell me you're in your forever home. Would that be fair? Now, the same reflex happens where the prospect, if they have something, will fight for it. Well, I'm not in my forever home. Bingo, you're in great shape. Now you've got something to work with versus, are you interested in selling? No, we're not interested in selling. Now what are you going to do? Well, now you got to get into the tug of war. Now you got to start responding to objections, et cetera, which is one of the other lies we're going to talk about in a second.
It's the easiest way to visualize this is, I go up to you and I'm trying to push you. And if yes is behind you and I'm trying to push you, you're going to push back.
That's right.
Towards no. It's same thing. Now I'm going to push you towards no, and you're going to push me towards yes.
That's exactly right. And if I try, this is the push-pull technique that we teach. So if I pull you towards yes, you pull away towards no.
That's right.
If I push you towards no and you have something to fight for, you push me back towards yes, right?
Perfect.
It's just Newton's law, all right?
Right.
So again, when the audience who's listening or watching to this, you don't have to be in convince mode to try to get someone to do something. You'd be a lot better off actually presenting them with not doing something, making the argument for the status quo and allowing people to argue against you. You're going to be a lot further ahead. All right. Lie number 4, the prospect decides to do business or not to do business. Huge lie. Okay. This is only true because agents have a lack of a full pipeline. They have no clients and they're broke most of the time. So they're so desperate and needy for money that when they go and interview or when they go and meet with a prospect, a buyer or seller, that buyer or seller holds so much power over the agent because that agent is attached to their money. They want their money. And because they want their money, they act like a mule. The prospect sits back. They grab maybe a soda, maybe a bucket of popcorn, and they get the mule on stage and then they get the mule to just puke and to vomit all over. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this, and the convince mode, right? And they sit back, yep, keep going. They just sit there in silence and they just watch the mule perform. They're like the puppet master while the mule's dancing on stage. Right. They're just pulling the strings. And at the end of their performance, the seller gets to hold all the power. Oh, that's pretty good. We'll think about it. We're going to interview some other mules, and we'll let you know how you rank. And then you find yourself in a beauty pageant that oftentimes you lose, right? And so that's not true. It's not true. That the reality of it is this, that there are a lot more people that are going to sell their home this year than there are of you. That's the truth. That's the reality. Nobody can argue that, right? There are going to be more homes sold in any market in the country than any single agent. Sure. So my argument for the audience is, who should be interviewing who? In other words, who actually brings more uniqueness to the situation? Is it the seller? Well, you can get thousands of sellers. There's going to be thousands of home sales. Or how many is there of you? There's only one of you. And so you have the equal right to interview sellers for motivation, for price, for is this person reasonable? Are they insane? Are they nice? Are they a jerk? Are they actually want to move? What are the terms, etc.? You have the same right to interview clients as they do to you, so that the decision to do business is equal. That it's not up to just one person. That's the truth. That's the only way to enroll really good clients. And this is the problem that new agents fall into all the time, is because they're so needy and they're so desperate, they end up working with clients from hell for not very much money. And they resent them. We're going to talk a lot about that here in just a second. And they start resenting the business, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think we both agree. This is a downstream issue. And so you got to ask yourself, what did I do to get in front of this prospect? Because oftentimes you are training the prospect how to treat you, and it started with however you got there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you begged and pleaded your way over. Let me just show you. I'm going to be in your area. The BS line. Hey, I'm going to be in your area Thursday night. No, you're not. No, you're not. That was a script you got from Tom, Dick, or Harry, right? And so you're not going to be in the area. And so you begged your way over. And then finally the prospect says, so fine, if you want to put on a show for us, we'll sit back. Yeah. Entertain us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. Convince me. Go ahead. Let's see what you got. Let me see the list of features and benefits. And what do you charge for that? Okay. Well, let me see. I'm going to meet with all your other mule competitors and see what they have to offer and what they charge. And we'll let you know.
That's right.
We hold the keys to this entire thing. So it doesn't have to be that way. All right. Next. What are we on? Number 5, I think. Okay. Oh, this is great. The lie is that the prospect raises the objections and the salesperson responds to them. Okay. This is another problem. Well, this is only true the lie is only believed rather because agents don't know how to sell. They're not taught how to sell. And it's because of everything we just talked about. They go in there and try to convince people to do things for their own reasons. That, my friend, will 100% only result in one thing, and that being that the person argues their reasons why you're wrong. And so if you don't like objections and you hate rejection, well, then you better figure out a different way to communicate because you're the problem.
Sure.
There are no bad prospects. There are only bad salespeople. So why they don't like to sell is because I don't like the rejection. And well, you don't have to deal with rejection or objections. If you're dealing with rejection or objections, it means you're doing something wrong.
Sure.
There's a whole new way to sell or to communicate where you don't ever have to give objections or get objections.
And if you do win the business, this is why every deal that you have is a disaster.
Yeah, so true.
It's because you have convinced them. So guess who has to carry the weight of this going well? So
true. So true. You have spent so much time convincing the person and you won them over. Now you've created a world that's unreasonable for you to deliver on.
You're never going to win.
You're never going to win.
Nope.
You're never going to win. And the whole thing with objections is it should be you serving the objections and the prospect responding. That's the point. Well, what do you mean, Brandon? Can you be a little bit more specific? Sure. We talked about it before. What does every homeowner say? Well, let me just take a step back. Are there more reasons why prospects tell realtors why they aren't going to sell and why they aren't going to do business with them than there are? Well, of course, yes. There's a lot more. Well, so then rather than get into a situation where you're trying to convince somebody to do something, to wait to hear the objection that you always get, wouldn't it make more sense to enter that conversation and serve that objection to the prospect and allow the prospect to handle their own objection? Well, let me give you a great example. If you are calling for sale by owners, what is the objection that every single for sale by owner has? That is no mystery. They're selling the house on their own because they don't want to pay a commission. I mean, no one should be like, that should not be difficult for people to understand. So rather than calling up a for sale by owner and saying, Mr. For sale by owner, would you be interested in meeting with me to see what I could do to sell your house? Well, are you dumb? I mean, it says for sale by owner outside of my house. I'm selling it on my own because I don't want to pay you and I don't see any value in what you have to offer whatsoever. So rather than do that, why don't you invert that? Why don't you call the for sale by owner and say, Mr. For sale by owner, I get the feeling that it wouldn't matter if I showed you a plan and you believe that I could sell the house for more than you can. It probably wouldn't matter. You're going to sell this thing on your own no matter what. Am I right? Now the prospect can deal with the objection. Why am I having to deal with the objection? It's just a lie. You with me?
1,000%. And if you don't know what objections, make a dozen calls, write them down. And guess what? Next time you make a call, serve those up.
That's right.
What are the biggest ones you struggle with? If you're a new agent and you keep getting asked, man, how many homes have you sold? Serve it up.
That's right.
Take it out. Take the words out of their mouth.
Such a great point. So like that one, right? You're a brand new agent and you keep getting, well, you know, Sonny, how long you been doing this? How many homes have you sold? And then now you have to become defensive and justify. Bring it up. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'll shoot you straight. I'm just getting started at this. And so I kind of get the feeling it wouldn't matter how much you believed I was the right agent. If I haven't sold hundreds and hundreds of homes, you're probably going to tell me to get lost. Would that be fair? And then you serve it up and the prospect says, well, no, not necessarily. Everything changes if you're bringing up the concern before they do. And oh, by the way, it's the fastest way to build rapport and trust. All right, let's go to number 6. Oh, another good one. All right, this is the lie. The lie is that the close happens at the end. So first off, closing is a myth in itself. Closing is only a thing in sales because no one knows how to open. No one knows how to qualify, so they think they put this big emphasis on closing business. Well, that's only a thing because most salespeople suck at disqualifying and they don't know how to open a sale. So closing a sale becomes very difficult for them. All qualification and all closing happens at the beginning of a sale, not the end of the sale. So let me give an example. It is no mystery to a prospect that when they meet with a salesperson, they go through their dog and pony show, that at the end, they're waiting for the big crescendo. I know this person is going to ask me to make some decision at the end. There's no confusion around that. Would you agree with that?
Not at all.
Yeah. And so because of that, then everyone's waiting for it. Everyone's waiting for you to deliver the price. Everyone's waiting for you to deliver whatever you're going to deliver at the end.
You might even hear, I've only got 5 more minutes.
That's right.
Are we almost done?
That's right. That's so good, right? And so because you've waited to the end, that's the issue. All closing should happen at the beginning. Now, let me give you an example. This is going to really, I hope, resonate with a lot of realtors, okay? So at the beginning of a listing appointment, right? Again, closing becomes, the harder you qualify up front, the easier the close will become later, and the exact opposite is true, right? So at the beginning of a listing appointment, this is exactly what we teach every single agent that I coach, is you are going to have some agreements, not expectations, agreements with the prospect at the beginning of the conversation. Number 1, how long this meeting is going to go. And we're going to agree on how long the meeting is going to go. Number 2, you are going to give the prospect the permission to tell you no. This is going to, when you do this, you'll never get to think it over again. You're going to define to the prospect that, listen, you might say yes, you might say no. I know I'm not the right agent for everybody. And if in fact you find I'm not the right agent, you can tell me. I promise you won't hurt my feelings. So rather than getting to the end of our conversation and, telling me, listen, I got to think it over, when really, in fact, if you felt like it was a no, just tell me. I promise you won't hurt my feelings. Are you comfortable with that? Now you've laid out what a think it over means, so that when you get to the end and you get to think it over, we've already defined that that means no, and that you can own that decision. Next is getting permission to be brutally honest. This is this third agreement that you're making up front. What does that mean? That means that A, you get the permission from the seller to tell them the truth around price, around condition, around the market, around what it's going to take to get the home sold, which, oh, by the way, allows you to differentiate yourself from all of your competitors and to plant some seeds around some red flags that they need to be aware of, like your competitors going and meeting with sellers that want to buy the listing. That you can actually tell a seller, listen, my competitors are going to sit right in front of you and tell you a price that your home is worth, and knowing that it's not true because it's what they hope you want to hear. I would prefer to be 100% upfront, even if that means you hearing some things that you don't love. Even if it means that you decide not to do business with me, I'd rather walk away and not get your business based on the truth versus win your business today based on lies. Are you okay with that? And there's not a human on the planet who's going to say, no, I'd rather actually you just BS me the whole time.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the third agreement. The fourth agreement is getting permission to tell the prospect no. This is where we're creating the equal footing, right? It's you don't get to make all the decisions either. Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, would you be terribly upset if through our conversations or based on the questions that I ask, if I don't feel that I can meet your expectations, would you be terribly upset if I told you it's a no from me and I simply can't help you? No, we'd want to know. And then lastly, you're going to agree on what is going to happen at the end. So when we talk about the close at the end, it's the biggest lie, that the close is already out of the way.
That's right.
All of the decision process, the agreements around how this is going to go are all out of the way before the conversation even begins.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
So when you get to the end and it is time to make that decision, you aren't closing convincing. You're just reminding them of what they already agreed to at the beginning.
The prospect should be the one closing because you've already defined it all at the beginning. There is no closing. That's what we're talking about. If you do this right up front, there is no big crescendo at the end.
That's right.
There is no this big closing tactical thing that everyone's bought into having. That's a myth. It's a lie. And it's already been decided on what's going to happen through the upfront agreements that you've made. That's why when you get to the end of the meeting, it's like, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, that's all the questions I have for you. Do you have any last questions for me? No? Great. What would you guys like to do from here? And if it's anything but a yes, if it's a no, that's perfectly fine. If it's a think it over, you know how to deal with it. Number 7, discounting your commission helps the client. So this is another big thing that a lot of agents say, well, I felt bad for my client, or, I wanted to give them a break, or it was a past client, or it was a friend of mine. It was a friend from church. I just wanted to help them out and give them a break. And, and so that's the myth. Now, let me just read a little bit from one of my favorite books. This is The Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns. And so this is so good. This is in one of the last chapters, okay? And I'm just going to read this. This is the 11th proclamation. We will charge more. All right, now let me just read this to you guys. So sit back, story time. By following the money proclamations, get paid first, talking about money early, refusing to work at a loss, and now charging more, we develop the confidence that attracts better clients and weeds out poor fits without wasting resources. Proper employment of our minimum level of engagement helps this regard. Thrifty clients are repelled and quality clients are attracted based on how much you charge. In boldly charging more than our competitors, we advertise to the prospect that we have the confidence to deliver high quality outcomes. As we get better, we will charge even more until we find that equilibrium that captures the appropriate return for value of our services. Our premium pricing will cost us clients from time to time, but if we are not losing business on price occasionally, then we are not charging enough. Conversely, if we need to win business on price, we are not setting ourselves apart as experts. Like our competitors, we too will use pricing as a positioning tool. But unlike them, we will strive to demonstrate higher pricing and thus benefit from all its positioning implications. Where others talk of their competitiveness as on this front, we will march headlong into the subject following the 9th proclamation. We will address the issues of money up front and early. We will invite the client to tell us that he would prefer to work with a more profitable firm. We will not apologize for charging more. It is fair compensation for the increased value we deliver. It lets us to improve our offering by giving us the means to reinvest in ourselves and most of all, into the client experience. Profit improves service. When we take on an engagement with less than thin margins, then we incur a problem with that engagement from not charging enough. We are left with little ability to fix the problem. Healthy margins gives us the wherewithal to fix our mistakes. The test for this is the ringing phone. When we look down to see the profitable client's name, we're happy to pick it up. When the unprofitable client calls, we cringe. Our clients know whether they are getting the best from us or not. So failing to charge enough leaves little room to provide great client experience. All right, crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really strong. And I mean, that's just the beginning of the chapter. And so the thing is that agents, when they think they're giving their clients a break by discounting their commission, it's a massive, massive mistake for them and more importantly, for their client. So let's talk about that first. The reason why it's a mistake for the client to discount your commission is because of exactly what it talks about in the book, is a lack of resources to get the client the result that they want. So the agent who doesn't have the profit to pour back into the listing and the promotion of the listing, the events around the listing, the professional positioning around the listing, the client pays the price. If you asked any seller, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what's more important? Paying the least to the agent who sells your home or putting the most amount of money in your pocket? 100% of them would say, put more in my pocket. And agents forget this. They think they're doing the client an act of service by charging them less. They are hurting not only themselves, we're going to talk about that in a second, not only their family, but they're hurting the same client that they think they are serving by lowering their fee. And by lowering the fee, they can't afford to do great events. They can't afford to do top-notch marketing. They can't afford to do the buyer lead generation that agents that have more profit can do, so that that seller gets the very best experience and the very most for their home. Your thoughts on that point first?
You know, you look at things as being a buyer. If you go into a situation and there are times where you have done something or gotten a discount and gotten the service for a cheap price versus overpay, like just see how you're treated from the sales team. And it's really interesting because it just follows that. You as the buyer, when your phone rings, that's the best analogy. How do you feel? Do you want to work with them? Do you not? It's the easiest concept, I think, to wrap your head around this.
Exactly. So then the next part of charging less or charging more is the resentment of the client. So like when you take on a client, so let's go back to what Blair Enns talks about in the book. And I totally agree that what you charge is should be a message that attracts the right client and repels the wrong client. And the exact opposite is true. When you enroll clients based on discounting what it is that you charge as a way into the relationship, you are setting up for a very dysfunctional relationship. You are setting up a relationship that lacks boundaries, that has the seller that has this thing kind of over your head. And as a result, you probably will resent that client where you want to so badly say, you know what? Remember I did you this huge favor, and you're never going to say it, but that's what you want to say every single time. When they're walking all over you and they're calling you nights and weekends and they're a pain in the ass to deal with, you want to so badly say, but do you not remember? They don't care. They will take without remorse. And it's because you're attracting the type of client, whether you want them or not, based on your pricing.
That's right.
And so it's just like you said, if you're not losing clients based on premium pricing, you are not charging enough because the right person places value in value, not in what they pay. And so there's two types of people. There are cheap people who value paying less for something, and there are people that value in getting more value, right? They value in premium pricing, premium products, premium service. You get to make a decision based on how you're going to charge, which of those two people you attract.
That's right. The problem is the person that pays the least, they still want the most.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so that's the second reason. Then the third reason I wrote down, so we talked about why charging less is not good for the client that you think you're helping. We talked about why, what happens to you emotionally when you start discounting your price. Let's talk about the most logical thing. Do the math. It's bad for your business. 10 clients at $20,000 a piece is $200,000. It'd take you 40 clients at $5,000 to get the same result. So let me ask you a question. Would you rather work 4 times as hard for the same amount of money? Hopefully you say no. Which clients are going to get a better experience? Only working with 10? Who can you give more, what am I looking for? More attention to? 10 clients or 40 clients, right? It's just any way you look at it. And I love how people try to justify this whole thing. But any way you slice it, it doesn't make any sense. Just the same way that like no other professional, you're not talking about, how your surgeon can cut the fee. It's unheard of because any other profession, you want the best result. You don't go and hire an attorney and talk about the attorney in terms of what's the cheap. You don't go and say, let me find the cheapest attorney possible. No, you say, I need to find the best attorney possible. Same thing with the dentist. It's like, well, let me just try to find the guy that just does it out of his truck on the corner because he charges the least. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you're positioning yourself in the market that way with clients, you're going to end up with the clients that you don't love.
Yeah. Are you focusing on the outcome or are you focusing on the little features and benefits? That's the difference between those two people.
Yeah. And if you are focused on features and benefits around pricing, you just become a commodity because there's such an absence of value that
it's a race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom. And there is no benefit to being like the second or third cheapest. And so it's like, you might as well become the cheapest. And, I don't know if you want to build a business that way. And for most agents, they want to build a business, a sales practice where they have these relationships with clients that come back and repeat and referral business. You might not get that if you get a bunch of clients that are pricks to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Where they can't stand you, you can't stand them. And that's what you get when you just end up, to your point, racing towards the bottom and getting the people that just want cheap.
Yeah. You look at luxury brands, look at cars, for example. The people that are at the top, it's a commodity. It still gets you A to B, and people are paying for those intangible things, right? You go into a Ferrari dealership, Lamborghini, Porsche, whatever. Like, it's still a vehicle. It has 4 wheels.
That's right.
It gets you where you need to go. But people are paying for those things that have nothing to do with how much it costs.